Good evening, everyone. Can you please confirm if the audio and video, if everything is clear for you? We will start with today's session. Please do give a confirmation in the live chat option. I'll wait for a minute so that you can give me a confirmation, and I'll begin with the session after that. Okay. Thank you for the confirmation. Let us begin with the session for today. So today we are going to discuss the UPSC CPWD Assistant Architect question paper of 2023. This is the second part of it. If you have not yet watched the first part, in which we predominantly have discussed about the planning part, planning based questions mainly, you can go through the first video. In today's session, again we will be looking into around 30 questions again, and it will be a 1 hour session in which we are going to discuss some questions of the UPSC 2023 question paper. So let us begin with our discussion. Uh, Uh, so I have compiled some questions from the Assistant Architect question paper of 2023, which we are going to discuss in this video. So firstly, the first question for today: which of the following is a measure of resistance to the motion of sound waves at a given point and is one of the most important acoustical properties of material? So they're talking about the resistance offered by the medium of propagation. So for sound to travel, you always require a medium. It could be solid, liquid, or it could be gas. So when sound propagates through any medium, the surrounding particles, they provide some resistance. If this is a sound wave propagating through a medium, the surrounding particles provide a resistance to the propagation of the sound wave, and that is referred to as acoustic impedance. So from the given option, so they're talking about impedance, inertia, propagation, velocity. Velocity obviously is distance traveled per unit time. They're talking here about the measure of resistance to the wave propagation. So basically sound is a series of vibrations. When these vibrating particles, for example, if I'm talking to someone in front of me, how does the sound propagate? It travels in the form of vibration of particles, and it reaches to the person's ear finally, right? So that's basically propagation of sound. During the propagation of these vibrations of sound, the surrounding air particles, they offer a sense of they offer resistance to the vibrations of particles, to the propagation of sound, which is referred to as acoustic impedance, or the measurement unit for specific. So there's a term, specific acoustic impedance. So not only looking into the terms, you also can refer to the measurement unit. Generally in competitive exams, you do get questions on the measurement units of various terms, mainly from lighting and acoustics part. So you'll need to be clear with the definitions of terms and the measurement units. So just to add to this, specific acoustic impedance is measured in measurement units of rails. That's a non-SI unit. However, the SI unit will be Pascal meter per second. So that's the measurement unit for Pascal second per meter. It is Pascal second per meter. That's the measurement unit for specific acoustic impedance in SI units. This is non-SI units. That's about the measurement unit. So remember, what is impedance? It is basically the resistance to the propagation of a sound wave through a given medium. That's called as impedance. So next question. Consider the following characteristics. Consider the following characteristics in the mechanism of transmission of sound. So they have given three statements, and moving further, they're asking which of the following statements are correct. So let us go through the statements, given statements first clearly. The first statement: in solids, acoustic waves are always composed of longitudinal and transverse components for a given type of excitation. These phenomena depends on the types of bond existing between the particles. That's the first statement. So if you, by reading the first point itself, you need to get a sense of what are they talking about in this question. They're basically talking about the types of wave propagation and sound as a sound wave or acoustic wave, in which form does it propagate. So basically, to understand this, wave propagation is predominantly of two types. You have transverse and longitudinal wave. Before I discuss this question, let me give you a brief idea on that. So transverse wave is basically where the particles move perpendicular to the direction of propagation. If say this is the direction of wave propagation, the particles are oscillating upwards and downwards, like water waves, or in seas and oceans. They are transverse waves where the particles move up and down which is perpendicular to the direction of wave propagation. That's called as a transverse wave. Whereas longitudinal wave is basically where the particles oscillate in the direction of propagation. Generally sound waves in air. Sound waves in air travel in the form of compressions and rarefactions. A compression is where the particles come close to each other and then they move further apart. So this is basically how a sound wave propagates in air in the form of compressions and rarefactions. Here the particles are oscillating parallel to the direction of propagation. The particles are moving forward and backwards. So that's basically a longitudinal wave. So wave propagation is basically of these two types. Now let us look into the given statements. Like you can remember one point over here. Sound waves, when they travel in air, they predominantly travel in the form of longitudinal waves. In other medium, it will act in a different way. So if you look into the first statement, solids particularly, acoustic waves in solids, they are a combination of both. One prime example for that would be the seismic waves in the form of earthquakes. So I hope you all know about the basics of earthquake or seismic waves. You have P waves and S waves. I've added a diagram of it. P waves over here, which are P stands for primary. The primary waves in seismic waves, that is in earthquake, they travel or they propagate in the form of compressions and rarefactions. You can look at that in this picture. That's basically in the form of a longitudinal wave. The secondary waves or S waves in a seismic wave, that travels or propagates in the form of a transverse wave. So seismic wave is a type of an acoustic wave, which is a combination of both P wave and S wave. So it has both those, right? There are various other types of seismic waves. So in solids, sound can travel in both ways, or acoustic waves can travel in both transverse and longitudinal wave, and it depends on the properties of the particles in that medium. So that's a correct statement actually. The second statement, in liquids, the two types of waves always coexist even though longitudinal variants are dominant. That also is correct. So even in liquids, it is a combination of both. However, longitudinal wave propagation is a predominant type of propagation for acoustic wave. In air, however, in gases particularly, sound always propagates in the form of longitudinal wave. So let us see the third option. In longitudinal in gases, the longitudinal vibrations are practically negligible. They are saying it is not traveling in the form of longitudinal wave, even though their effects can still be observed, particularly near wall line, limiting the considering space. That's an incorrect statement, because in gases, sound always propagates in the form of longitudinal wave. Transverse propagation is negligible or is not present. So this is an incorrect statement. The correct statements in the given question will be 1 and 2 only. So D option will be the correct answer here, right? So remember the three types of propagation, or the propagation of acoustic wave in all the three mediums, and the type of wave in the form they propagate. That's about the third question. The next one, which of the following equations is correct? So this again is a question related to acoustics. Which of the following equations is correct that shows the relationship between linking velocity of sound, wavelength and frequency? So they're talking about the relation between wavelength, frequency and velocity. I hope you might have studied about this in your +1 +2 standard itself, basics about sound wave, but let us still discuss about this question, the relation between velocity, wavelength and frequency. So if you look into what is frequency, frequency is nothing but number of waves propagating per unit time. So it is basically measured in waves per unit time. Number of waves propagating per unit time. So in 1 second or in 1 minute, how many waves are propagating, be it longitudinal or transverse waves. That's called as frequency. The next one is wavelength. So this is basically frequency. Next is wavelength. If you're denoting it by lambda, wavelength is defined as the distance traveled by one wave. So distance propagated by one wave, that's called as lambda, wavelength. Distance of one wave, distance per wave, horizontal distance traveled by one wave, that's called as the wavelength. If you multiply frequency and wavelength, let us say you're multiplying frequency and the wavelength, you will be getting wave, number of waves per unit time multiplied by distance traveled by one wave. That's what you will get. So if you just see, if you're talking about one wave, you can, if you just cancel that out, you'll get distance traveled per unit time, which is nothing but velocity. Distance traveled per unit time is called as velocity. So that's a simple way you can understand, that is C. So C is equal to F into lambda. they're talking about the relation of wave. Have given the equation in the form of lambda is equal to dash. So if you rewrite the given equation, so frequency into wavelength is equal to velocity. So wavelength will be velocity upon frequency, c upon f. Lambda is equal to c upon f is given in option A. That would be the appropriate answer from the given options. So that's a simple question between asking a relation between velocity, frequency, and wavelength. Let's now look into the next question. This is a question based on architects and the works and contemporary architecture. Sri Aurobindo Ashram Golconda at Pondicherry is a work of dash. So they're asking the name of the architect. You can see the building. It is a very famous one. The reason being, this particular building, Aurobindo Ashram at Golconda, or it is also called as Golconda Hostel. This particular structure, this particular building is popular because it is said to be the first modernist building in India. It was completed, the construction of it was completed in 1945. It was a concrete structure, and you can see it has that Bray-Soleil based design. Bray-Soleil is nothing but a type of grid of concrete members which gives shading to the building. So you have simple design using modern materials like concrete. So that's the idea of modernism, right? So it was completed in 1945, and this is considered to be the first modernist building in India. And this building was designed by architect Raymond Antonin. That's the correct answer. So it's the first modernist building in India, which is Golconda Hostel or Aurobindo Ashram Golconda in Pondicherry, was designed by Raymond Antonin. Now remember, if you have an idea of the past UPSC questions or question papers, and if you have been following our series on YouTube channel, you will also come across this question. This is a past UPSC question again in assistant in architect requirement examination. They have asked this question in the past in UPSC, like which of the following is considered to be the first modernist building in India. This was asked in the examination, in UPSC examination, for a requirement of architects. Now, if someone who before attending this 2023 question paper which we are discussing, before this, if someone has thoroughly studied the past UPSC papers and has done preparation, will for sure answer this question without any difficulty at all. So that is the idea of this series, and make sure you utilize this YouTube series, learn the questions. It's not that same question will be repeated, but in the course of process of learning things or going through questions and the options, you will learn a lot of things which might end up useful for you during the actual examination which you're going to write, which is UPSC Deputy Architect examination as well. So I would suggest you all to keep follow and not miss out any live session in which we are discussing all these questions. So that's about this question based on the name of the architect. The next one, form follows function, one of the famous slogans widespread in modern design culture, was coined by. So this particular maxim was given by by an architect who is also referred to as father of modernism. Form follows function, that became the guiding principle of modernism. So what is the meaning of form follows function? The form of the building should not be governed by the aesthetic properties or the beauty of it. Rather, it should focus on the functionality. If you're designing a space, the design of it should be governed mainly by function. So that's the idea of modernism. In modern architecture and modernism, you don't have unnecessary ornamentation or aesthetic value to the building in terms of exterior. Even if it is there, the focus will always be on function. So form follows function was the ideology for modern architecture, which was given by architect Louis Sullivan, who is also considered to be father of modernism or in some cases is also referred to as father of American modernism. If you look into the other options, Anthony Giddens, Henry van de Velde, Daniel Libeskind, these architects or these people, so Anthony Giddens is a person who is associated with sociology, so they are not even architects associated with modernism. So if you look into option B, Anthony Giddens is a person he's a sociologist associated with study of sociology. Then you have Henry van de Velde, that is option C. He's an architect belonging to the Art Nouveau style. Then you have Daniel Libeskind, the architect associated with deconstructivism style. So you should not only know the names of the architects of important and famous buildings, you should also learn about the ideologies of various architects, the style they are associated with. All these are going to be important for your UPSC examination. So when you study architects and the works, make sure you learn the ideologies and the style an architect belongs to or is generally a proponent of. The next one, again a question on architects and the works. On in Group A, renowned architects Richard Rogers, Hassan Fathy, Kenneth Frampton are given. In Group B, the philosophical approaches of them are described. You need to match them. So let us just go through the philosophical approaches over here in Group B first. The first one is towards a critical regionalism. Critical regionalism, actually, towards a critical regionalism, is a paper published by Kenneth Frampton. So, in which he argued that this is where Kenneth Frampton has written this paper of towards a critical regionalism in the context of modernism and postmodernism. During the time of modernism, he published this paper towards a critical regionalism. So where he argued that universality or design uniformly throughout the world is not something which is good, where he propagated regional aspects to be included into it. So that was the basic premise on which this paper was published. So Kenneth Frampton is associated with the concept of towards a critical regionalism. So one for R. The second belief, if you see the second philosophical approach, belief in functionalism, technology and scientific research as a foundation and tool for architecture. So this for sure will be architect Richard Rogers. You can see in this particular picture, I have added a building over here. So uh, Richard Rogers is an architect, a British architect who is well known for propagating the style of high-tech architecture, or also called as structural expressionism, and he's also associated with the Bowelism in architecture. The building which you see over here, this is Lloyd's building in London, designed by Richard Rogers. It is a prime example for Bowelism and structural expressionism, also called as high-tech architecture. So structural expressionism is where the structural elements of the building are exposed out. Bowelism is a style of architecture where the internal organs or internal service lines of the building are exposed out, be it the elevators, or be it staircase, be it fire safety, HVAC lines. All these will be exposed out of the building. So Pompidou Center in Paris also is a prime example for Bowelism. Even for that, Richard Rogers was also a co-architect along with Renzo Piano. So Richard Rogers is associated with focus on technology and scientific research associated with high-tech architecture, also called as structural expressionism and Bowelism. So these are the styles to which Richard Rogers is associated with. Hassan Fathy is an Egyptian architect. You can look at an example of his architectural detailing or architectural features of his buildings. Hassan Fathy is a renowned Egyptian architect who worked on vernacular concepts of that region. He mainly focused on adobe and earth-based construction. So turned to traditional forms and methods of construction, seeking both to accommodate the needs of the community and to hint at a way to being a revived tradition of building. So revival forms, looking for traditional features, traditional elements, materials and construction techniques which are locally available. So that's what vernacular architecture is. So Hassan Fathy is associated with vernacular architecture and he's an Egyptian architect. So 231 is the correct answer, which will be option B from the given options. So you need to understand about the architects and the works, the philosophies and the styles which they belong to. The next one, the famous book, The Disappearing City, is written by. This is a renowned book, well-known book, which was published in 1932 by architect F.L. Wright, in which he gave one of his most famous and well-known urban planning or urban design principles or theories, the concept of broad-acre city. So, Disappearing City was written by F.L. Wright, in which, so in this book, he also described the concept of broad-acre city. So in UPSC examination, you will not only get questions on architects and their works or their books, you also sometimes get questions where they name a concept and ask in which book did the architect talk about it. Like for example, if you look into the works of Le Corbusier, you can get, and this was a past question which was asked in a competitive exam, where they asked in which book did Le Corbusier give his 5 points of modern architecture, 5 points of architecture. 5 points on architecture was written by him in a book towards a new architecture. Similarly, this is also a past UPSC question where once they asked a system of measurement and proportioning system given by Le Corbusier was written in which book? So it is the concept of modular man, which was written in his book, in Le Corbusier's book, The Modular. So you get such questions, the main idea or main concept explained in a given book by a given architect or an author. So remember, Disappearing City is a book written by F.L. Wright, in which he discussed this famous concept of Broad City, and after the publication of this book, after 2 or 3 years, he also developed a full-scale model of the concept of Broad City. So that is a very well-known concept of F.L. Wright. So that's about this question. The next one, excellent integration between structural and decorative design reflects in the works of Philip Johnson, Charles Correa, Anthony Gaudi, Alvar Aalto. So among the given options, a good integration or excellent integration between the structural components and design. One prime example is the sandbag model, or is also called as chain model. So in which Anthony Gaudi used to drop a project, or say suspend sandbags, and look at the geometric forms evolved out of this suspension, and he used those to replicate the ornamentation or the orientation of building components in various churches. So Anthony Gaudi is the appropriate answer. Even in a lot of churches designed by him, he made use of such tools of suspension model, where so the main motive of him was to integrate the structural and decorative work. If you look into Sagrada Familia also, you see those columns which are all not linear, they are inspired from nature. It is also said that Anthony Gaudi has closely associated his ideology, or has developed his ideology or his application towards architectural design, similar to biomimicry, where he tried to mimic natural forms like trees, branches, and all those features in his works. So however, the answer over here is Anthony Gaudi. Option C would be the appropriate answer. Next one, Bauhaus school of thought was given by. So Bauhaus was a school of thought of modernism which was in Germany before World War II. It started around 1919. That's when it got started, and it functioned. It was a modernist style which focused on functionality again. So Bauhaus school of thought was propagated by the architect Walter Gropius, who was a German architect who started this school, who started this ideology. So option A will be the answer. You can remember that Bauhaus, during its function, so during the Nazi Germany before World War II, this school was closed down by Nazis, and then Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, who was the last director of this particular school, he started practicing in the United States after going to US, after leaving Germany, right? So during the course of the, say, couple of decades for which Bauhaus school functioned in Germany, there were three prominent architects, or three main people you can remember about who are associated with Bauhaus. The first one, the founding director, was Walter Gropius. Walter Gropius was the first architect director of this Bauhaus school. Second one was Hans Meyer. And third architect director was Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. So these are the three architect directors who are associated with Bauhaus school of thought, which you have to remember, which can be asked in the examinations too. So answer over here is Walter Gropius, who is the founding director of this Bauhaus school of thought. Next one, consider the quantities of brickwork and plastering required in a 4-meter long, 3-meter high, and 30 centimeter thick wall. What is the total cost if rate of brickwork is 1200 per cubic meter and plastering is 20 square meter? So this is something which is very simple, but remember, in UPSC examination you will not have a calculator with you. So there is no provision where you can carry your calculator, and this is something which you need to solve using pen and paper. So you'll need to do it carefully and not do any mistakes in the multiplication part, otherwise it's a very simple question. Let's look into this. So the size of the wall is given as 4 meter by 3 meter. That's the dimension of it. Thickness of it is 30 centimeters. So firstly, let us try to estimate the total quantity of brickwork. So brickwork will be The total quantity of brickwork will be 4 meter by 3 meter by 30 centimeters. 30 centimeter, if you convert it into meters, you will get 0.3. So multiplying this, 4 3 is 12. 12 into 0.3 will be 3.6 cubic meter. That's the quantity of brickwork. Now what will be the cost associated for brickwork? Cost will be, it is given in the question as the rate is 1200 per cubic meter. So the cost will be 1200, which is per cubic meter, multiplied by the total quantity of work multiplied with 3.6. Multiplying this, I think you should get 4320 rupees. You can cross check, you can do the calculation with pen and paper. So you will get rupees 4320 for the cost associated with brickwork. But they're also talking about the total cost, not only brickwork. So total cost will also include the plastering cost. So let us look into the plastering now. Always remember, whenever you get questions this way, where they give you a wall and talk about plastering estimation, remember you should take both the faces, both the opposite faces of the wall have to be considered, not just one. So what will be the total plastering work? It will be there will be two faces, front and back, of size 4 into 3. So 4 3 is 12, 12 into 2 is 24 square meter. That's the total area of plastering. The rate is given as 20 rupees. So what will be the cost associated with plastering? It will be cost of plastering per square meter, which is 20 rupees, multiplied by 24 square meter. That's the total work. So this should give you rupees 480. 24 into 2 is 48. So this will give you rupees 480 as the answer for the plastering cost. Now the total cost will include both these values. This 4320 plus 480, adding these two, I think you should get answer as 4800. So option C will be the appropriate answer. 4800, 4320 plus 480 will give you 4800 as the correct answer for this question. So it's a simple question which is based on normal, say, simple math, nothing difficult at all. So next one, consider the following statements. Again, this is a question related to say specifications, related to estimation and specification topic. Consider the following statements regarding the process of preparing a building estimate. So while preparing an estimate, they're talking about some quantities of works. So first point, pointing involves is calculated in square meter for whole surface and deduction similar to plastering are made. Now what is pointing? You can answer this question only if you know what is pointing. Pointing is nothing but finishing of the mortar joints. If you look into this picture, this is a brickwork or an exposed brickwork. You have these mortar joints. So the finishing of these mortar joints, you cannot leave them unfinished if it is exposed brickwork. Particularly in exposed brickwork, you need to finish them to give a smooth surface or a smooth line of different profiles, which is generally done using this tool, which is called, it's a tool used in masonry work, which is called as jointer. So you can, this is a question which was asked in a competitive exam once, I think in DDA, not in UPSC, but it has been asked in the past in a competitive exam. What is the use of this tool jointer in masonry? It's a tool which is used for pointing work. Pointing is nothing but finishing of mortar joints. Now this is estimated. Now just imagine if you're looking into a wall, you will have mortar joints or you will have pointing work not only in one dimension. If you just observe, pointing is not just single straight line. You also have the vertical joints, right? So pointing work is not only associated with horizontal ones, but it also is associated with the vertical lines. Now if something is only linear, only in a straight line fashion, that's where you measure it in running meters. But here they're talking about square meter. Is that correct? Absolutely yes. Pointing is measured in square meter because it's not a linear work. It is something where you have horizontal and also vertical lines. It is generally estimated just like plastering. Generally thumb rules like around so mortar of 0.6 cubic meter is used for every 100 square meter of pointing. So based on the total work of pointing, the quantity estimation is generally done for pointing work, and the estimation is always done in square meter. In BOQ also, pointing always is measured and noted down in square meter only. Deduction similar to plastering is nothing but deductions will include the wall and window areas, or say the jam surfaces of openings. All these are the deductions. Even for pointing you will have the same deductions. In a wall, if you're having door and window, that will come under deduction part. So this first statement is a correct statement. Second statement, ornamental or large cornices are measured in running meter, running foot, for complete work which includes masonry, plastering, molding, etc., and paid for in running meters. So ornamental cornices, what is a cornice? A mold which is used generally along the 90 degrees formed at the intersection between walls and roof surfaces. Say this is a wall and a roof surface. You have cornice, generally a molding which is provided at these 90-degree angles. So cornice work is generally associated, it is generally measured in running meters because these are ornamental bands. What is a cornice? Cornice is nothing but an ornamental band, an ornamental molding band which is used in construction. So that is measured in running meters. So both 1 and 2 should be the correct answers. So option B will be the appropriate answer for this question. Which of the statements are correct? Both 1 and 2. Next one. Dolmen, Robbie House, Villa Shodan, and Falling Water are examples of architectural compositions which can be categorized under dash. So in order to answer, they're not only asking about the architect over here, they're not asking about the architect, they are rather asking about the design features of buildings. So when can you answer this question? You should never by heart, okay, it's so and so building, like for example, Robbie House, it was designed by F.L. Wright. Villa Shodan was designed by Le Corbusier. Don't by heart the names that way. While looking into the architects and the works, you should also visualize the buildings, try to remember the form of them, that because form based questions or architectural design based questions can also be asked in the UPSC examination. So I've compiled the pictures of all these four. So dolmen, which is a prehistoric, or you can say a stone age structure, which is generally stone age burial sites are referred to as dolmen. Then you have Villa Shodan, designed by Le Corbusier, which is in India. Then you have Robbie House, which is a prime example for the prairie style architecture propagated by F.L. Wright. Then you have Falling Water, which again is a prime example of organic architecture concept given by F.L. Wright. So you should not only remember the architects and name of the buildings, you should know the theories given by them. Like Robbie House is based on the principle of prairie style architecture given by F.L. Wright. Falling Water is based on the concept of organic architecture concept given by F.L. Wright. So what are these? What is organic architecture? What is prairie style architecture? What is Usonian house concept given by F.L. Wright? You need to study all these, make a note of them and remember these points for your examination. However, if you look into the form of these and see which of the following options are appropriate, planar compositions. Planar compositions are where you have plane surfaces. What is a plane? Basically a 2D surface. Do you have plane projections, planes coming out in the composition? That's probably yes. Let us look into the other options also. Angular designs. Angular composition is not something which is common over here, so that is for sure not an answer. Columnar design, columns dominating the design is not some. Columns dominate designs like in Parthenon. If you look into the architecture of ancient Greek architecture, columns define the architecture over there, but not here. Columnar design is not correct. Architectural jali designs, absolutely no. Jalis is not something which you see in all these pictures. Planar compositions would be the appropriate answer because you have 2D planes projecting out in various layers in all these designs. So planar composition would be the appropriate answer from the given options. Moving on, which one of the following is expressed as the heat potential per unit area as a calorific value in joules per square meter? So they're talking about measurement of amount of energy, and whenever you come across the term calorific value, what is calorific value? Calorific value is nothing but the amount of energy released by a substance due to complete combustion. By say for example, if you take 1 kg of a substance, let us say if you take 1 kg of wood or 1 kg of coal and you burn it, the quantity of energy, the joules of energy, heat energy released in that process is called as calorific value. So based on the calorific value, which of the following do you measure? Light load? Absolutely no. Light load has nothing to do with heat. Heat load, fire load, specific load. Now of these, the appropriate answer, heat load is generally a term which is used for heat gain in buildings, thermal gain in buildings, which is not relevant from calorific value point of view. So the answer over here will be fire load. So what is fire load of a space? Always fire load is defined for a building or a room. If I ask you what is the fire load of this room in which I am, you'll need to find out what is the total energy released due to complete combustion of all the contents of the space. This is a definition as per, you can go through from you can look into part 4 of NBC 2016 volume 1. Part 4 is relevant from fire safety. It's a fire safety chapter of NBC. Go through all the terminology given in this chapter from fire safety point of view. It will be important. In that you will find the definition of fire load and fire load density both. Fire load density is generally measured in joule per square meter. Fire load is generally measured in joules. However, from the given options, the closest or suitable answer will be fire load. However, in joules per square meter, you generally measure fire load density as per the definitions of NBC. So what is fire load? It is the total energy released due to complete combustion of all the contents of a space. That's called as fire load density or fire load of a space. So basically, fire load is the measure of energy. Fire load density is the total fire load of the space divided by the area of it. Say for example, you're having a floor area of 100 square meter, and if the fire load of it, let us say, 6000 joules, the fire load density will be amount of energy divided by area in floor area of the space. So that's called as fire load density of the room. So fire load will be the appropriate answer. Now, why is this measured for spaces? Fire load gives you an idea with respect to what is the level of a fire accident which can happen, or if in case there is a fire accident, what is the level or what is the extent to which there can be a release of heat energy, and how should you control it. So to come up with the strategies for fire control, we calculate fire load and fire load density of spaces. So that's about this question. Next one, which of the following is the triangular portion of a wall enclosing the end of pitched roof? So in pitched roof, what is the triangular part of the wall called as? That's what they are asking. If you look into this simple picture over here, let me mark some parts. So the part which is highlighted in yellow, which is the triangular part which is used to cover the sloping roof part, that's called as gable. Other terms associated with pitched roof include, so this top line which you see along the pitched roof, that's called as ridge, and the inclined edge formed due to intersection of two sloping roofs, that is generally referred to as valley. And the projection which you see, there is a slight projection coming out from the wall, that's referred to as eaves. So these are some terms which you can remember with respect to pitched roof. From the given options, the appropriate answer will be gable, the triangular part of a pitched roof. Triangular part of a wall which is used to cover the area below the sloping roof is called as a gable. So C will be the appropriate answer for this question. A simple question from building construction. Another next question, this also is from the same area of building construction. So in which they are asking, which one of the following is a wedge shaped tread used in circular, spiral and turning staircase? So in turning staircase, normal staircase, dog leg staircase and all, you will have normal rectangular treads. You will have these steps which are all rectangular in shape in normal steps. But in curvilinear, in spiral, or in say a spiral, circular or turning staircase, you cannot have perfect rectangular treads. Rather, you have wedge shaped blocks or wedge shaped treads. You can see in this picture also, the width is not same at both the ends. In the inner edge the width will be less, outer edge the width will be more for each and every tread. Such treads which are not rectangular, which are rather wedge shaped, are referred to as winders in architecture. So D will be the appropriate answer. What are winders? Winders are wedge shaped steps which are narrow in the inner part of the spiral, wider at the outer part or outer curve of the spiral. That's basically what a winder is. So D will be the appropriate answer for this question. Next one. Again a question from Architects and the Works, where they have given 4 buildings and they're asking which of the building is not designed by Le Corbusier. So let's see which of the following buildings is not designed by Le Corbusier. 4 options are given. Option 1, Carpenter Center for the Visual Arts, Harvard University, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Tallison West, Scottsdale, Arizona in United States. Mill Owners Association Building, Ahmedabad in India. The High Court, Chandigarh Capital Complex in India again. So these, I hope you know, are best examples of Le Corbusier's design in India. Both these buildings are designed by Le Corbusier. The High Court in Chandigarh, also Mill Owners Association in Ahmedabad. Both are the works of architect Le Corbusier. Option A, if you see Carpenter Center, it is one of the very few. In fact, it is said that in the whole of North American continent, there's only one building which is completely designed by Le Corbusier, and that is this. So this also is designed by Le Corbusier. Carpenter Center of Visual Arts. This is a modernist style building designed by Le Corbusier in United States, the only building designed by him in US. There are 1 or 2 other buildings in which he worked along with other architects, but this the only building which is completely designed by Le Corbusier in North America is the Carpenter Center. So Option B would be the answer, which is not designed by Le Corbusier. Taliesin West Scottsdale, that's a building designed by F.L. Wright. So this was his summer residence, it was his house, and also was the office for F.L. Wright. So that's not designed by Le Corbusier. So B will be the answer for this question. Next one. Saturation in color is referred to, very simple question if you know about Munsell color system. So there are, so let us look into the question and the options first. Saturation in color refers to dash how light or dark color appears, purity of color, appearance of color, blackness of color. These are the four options. So let me give you a brief idea on Munsell color system so that you can answer this question easily. So Munsell color system, so it's basically a color solid. It's also sometimes called as Munsell color solid, which was given by a person associated with geography and study of soil basically. So that's a color system developed by Munsell to color code the various gradients or colors in soil conditions. That was the idea with which this system actually was originally developed. However, if you look into the color system, in this color solid, all the colors are arranged into a solid in a three-dimensional composition based on three properties: hue, value, and chroma. You can see in this key picture over here, hue is basically a measure of the distinctness of a color. Like in Munsell color system, there are a total of 10 hues, of which there are 3 primary hues and 3 secondary hues. The primary hues you can see: red, purple, blue, green, and yellow. These are the 5 primary hues in Munsell color solid. There are 5 intermediate hues. Intermediate hues include blue, green, purple, blue, red, purple, yellow, red, and green, yellow. These are intermediate hues which are between the primaries. So all these are called as hues of a color. Hues in a color solid. Hue is basically distinct colors, branches, you can say. That's called as hue. Then you have value. Value is associated with the central axis. You can see along the central axis, ranging from 0 value of 0 associates with black, value of 10 associates with white. So in the center of the axis you have arrangement from black to white. So all the colors, based on how close they are to black or how close they are to white, they are arranged along the vertical axis, which is called as value of the color. Then you have chroma. Chroma is basically purity of the color. You can see in this picture, impure is in the center. As you move outwards, the purity increases. Purity is also called as saturation. So remember these terms: hue, value, and chroma. These are the three branches on which colors are arranged in Munsell color solid. Hue talks about the distinctness of the color. There are 5 primary hues and 5 intermediate hues in Munsell color solid. Value is a measure of black and white. So it's on the scale of black and white from 0 to 10. So it is measure of how light or dark a color appears. So this is basically option A is value. And the third one is chroma. Chroma is a term which talks about purity of the color. It is basically also called as saturation. Saturation is how pure a color is. So as you move outwards, it is getting saturated with color. Saturated with color, purity is increasing. So chroma is increasing. So purity and saturation are alternative terms for chroma itself. So if you see, they're talking about saturation of the color is referred to as purity of the color. So B will be the appropriate answer. And in Munsell color solid, saturation or purity is referred to as chroma. So remember that. So B is the answer for this question. However, there are one or two more questions again from Munsell color solid. Moving further, we will discuss them as well. In addition to these terms, hue, value, and chroma, you also should remember 3 more terms: tint, tone, and shade. If you take any hue and mix it with white, you will get tints of it. Tint is basically mixture of a hue with levels of white. If you are adding white at different levels to a given hue, you will get various tints of an original color. So tint basically associates with hue plus white. If you are taking a hue and mixing it with gray, it is called as tone of a color. Mixture of a hue with gray is called as tone. And finally, mixture of a hue with various levels of black is called as shades of a color. So what are shades of a color, or how do you generate shades of a color? You mix a hue with various levels of black. So tint, tone, and shade are also terms which you can remember from color theory point of view. Hue, value, chroma, tint, tone, shade. These are the 6 points which you have to remember with respect to color systems and color theory. Let's look into the next question. Which of the following colors stand out in relation to the other nearby hues? So this is a term which is generally used in interior design. Say in interior design, you might have seen this also in shopping interiors and all. uh, if you're having walls with a plain color, or say something close to white, or something very say light color, uh, to make some features stand out, could be some say louvers, or could be some boundary treatment, or say the margins of some interior components, they're generally highlighted with a brighter color. Could be something like red, or say something similar to that, right? So that in interior design is referred to as an accent color. Accent color is basically a color which is used to highlight things. If in a composition you want to highlight something, you use a different color to complement it. That's what called as, that is an accent color in color composition. Decent color, important color are not relevant terms. Analogous colors are basically those colors which do not stand out. If in a composition you're having three colors which are almost similar, so generally in a color wheel, continuous colors in a color wheel are called as analogous colors. If you look into a color wheel, if you take any three colors, three continuous colors, they are almost similar to each other on a color wheel. So nothing will stand out drastically. That's called as analogous colors. The answer here will be option A, accent colors, where something stands out. They're talking about which color stands out in relation to other hues. Accent color will be the appropriate answer for this question. Next one. Which one of the following is a progression of whole numbers wherein each term is the sum of the preceding two numbers? So there's a sequence which is used in proportions and say aesthetic proportions, like just like how you have golden ratio, golden proportion, you also have a series which is generally associated with golden ratio itself. So this sequence is said to be a close approximation of golden spiral as well, golden series as well. So this what basically you're talking about a sequence of whole numbers where you have each number as a sum of previous two digits. So generally it starts with 0 and 1. 0 plus 1 you'll write as the next digit. Add the two digits, again you'll get the next digit. 1 plus 1 you'll get 2. Add the previous two digits and get the next digit 3. Add the previous two digits, you will get 5. Add the two previous digits, you will get 8. Add the two previous digits, you will get 13. And this sequence is called as Fibonacci series. So option B will be the appropriate answer. A series which is considered to be a close approximation, which is said to be associated with golden ratio, wherein each number is sum of the previous two digits, is called as Fibonacci series. So B is the appropriate answer for this question. Next one. Lightening a hue's normal value by adding white to it is called. I have just told you, if you take a hue and if you lighten the value, add white to it, that's called as tint of the color. So you'll get tints. Tint of that hue, tone of that hue, shade of that hue, chroma of that hue. Tint is the answer for this question. Tint, tone and shade. Remember, mixing white you get tint, mixing gray you get tone, and mixing black you get shade. So B is the appropriate answer for this question. Next one. This is a question based on simple geometry of 3D forms, where they are talking about the solid forms in group A and the description is given in group B. So reading that description, you should find out which form are they talking about. Options are given for them as the following. So let us look into the options. Read the option one by one and let us try to identify which figure they are talking about. First one, a solid generated by the revolution of a right triangle about one of its sides. So if you take a right angle triangle, and if you a solid generated by the revolution of it along a side, if say this is a side, if you revolve it around this particular side, you will get a cone. Just rotate it by along the side, you'll get a cone out of it. So option number one is cone. So for cone I will write 1. Excuse me. Next one, the second statement, a polyhedron having a polygonal base and triangular faces meeting at the common point of vertex. So any polygonal base with a vertex with a single point and triangular faces joining over there, that's a pyramid. So for pyramid I will write number 2. Next, third point, a solid generated by the revolution of a semicircle about its diameter, whose surface is at all points equidistant from center. A 3D form where all the points are equidistant from a center is called as a sphere, and they're talking about a semicircle rotated along its diameter. So if you rotate it along its diameter, you will get a three-dimensional form which is basically spherical, where all the points are equidistant from the center. So I will write for sphere point 3. The last point, a solid generated by the revolution of a rectangle about one of its sides. It is centralized about the axis, passing through the centers of two circular faces. So solid where you take a rectangle, rotate it along one side, you will get a 3D form which is very cylindrical. They're talking about the central axis which is meeting the centers of two circular faces, that also meets the condition. So cylinder will be the option correct answer for point 4. So the correct sequence is 3 4 2 1. 3 4 2 1 from the given options you can identify and tick it. 3 4 2 1 is in option B. So option B will be the appropriate answer for this question. Next one, the concept of architecture machine, where the machine was supposed to be intelligent enough to carry out the design while cooperating in a dialogue with the architect, was pioneered by. So this concept of architecture machine, where a computer was used which would basically take inputs and discuss with the architect. So if an architect gives some command, it will generate a corresponding, so using computers, using machine generated forms. This concept was first given by Nicholas Negroponte, who also wrote a book by the same name. So you can see this is the cover page of it, published by MIT. So the Architecture Machine, it's a book written by Nicholas Negroponte. He is associated with the concept of architecture machine, which basically is a computer which takes inputs and generates architectural designs. So the name which he gave for these series of machines originally was Urban. So Urban 5 was an advanced one which finally created some designs by taking inputs from the architect. So that's the answer. Nicholas Negroponte would be the answer for this question. Next one. Which of the following is a mathematical model for generating and representing architectural curves and surfaces? You can see an example of this surface. I hope everyone who has worked on 3D generating software like 3ds Max and so on, you will know this term. It is called as NURBS. NURBS is a mathematical model which basically is used for generating architectural surfaces. So NURBS is an acronym for non-uniform. You can remember the full form of it also. Non-uniform rational basis spline. That's the full form for NURBS. It's a mathematical model used to generate 3D surfaces used in architectural curves and features too. So that's NURBS would be the answer for this question. The term very frequently used in 3ds Max and other 3D software in architecture as well. Next question. As per the Manual of Architectural Practice MAP of Council of Architecture, so there are various volumes of this. Uh, which of the following tenders quote a fixed price? If the quote is varied, it involves contractual problems and methodology to arrive at the rates for addition, deletion, and alterations would be necessary, and it is to be built in the tender document. So they're talking about a contract, or they're talking about a tender where there's a fixed price, and that has to be that's the quantity, that's the final price of the tender. If there is any change in it, it will create contractual problems. To address those problems, there should be a preset level of conditions already written into the tender documents. So which type of tender is it? Cost plus fee tender? That's not an answer, because in cost plus fee tender the cost is not fixed. Whatever work is going on, that cost will be borne by the owner or the concerned authority, and a contractor will get a particular fee at the end. So that's an altogether different approach. That's not the answer. Turnkey tender. Turnkey is a type of contract or a tender process where everything, it has nothing to do with money, or a turnkey project is something where the responsibility is given to one person, including the design part, the execution part, procurement part. So if everything is done by a single contractor, that's called as a turnkey tender or a turnkey project. It doesn't have a fixed price as such. So that's also not the answer. Lump sum is the correct answer. Lump sum tender will have a fixed price. So BOOT tender, BOOT again, BOOT, build, own, operate, transfer, is a type of project financing. It is not a type of tender. So C would be the appropriate answer. Types of contracts and tenders are given in the Manual of Architecture Practice Volume 4 of Council of Architecture. You can refer to the definitions of various tenders over there. So lump sum is the correct answer because there's a fixed value. Next question. As per the Architects Act 1972, the architect has to ensure dash. So they're talking about the professional ethics over here. Let us look into the options and select which you think is the responsibility of an architect, or which is basically the work ethic which has to be followed by an architect. First point, that his professional activities do not conflict with the general responsibility to contribute to the quality of environment and future welfare of the society. That is something which is written in the Architects Act as a responsibility. But if you see, you can also use elimination approach. The remaining options you can just see and if check if that can be correct or not. Option B, that his image within society is well maintained. Obviously the image of an architect in the society has nothing to be given a legal basis or a recommendation as such, right? That his design solve the emergencies of environmental degradation. So that also is not something which an architect has to ensure as per Architects Act. uh, Only designing from emergency point of view, it's not something which is mentioned. That is, designs are of lowest cost to save the country's finances and future welfare of the society. Obviously architect saving money on a project will have nothing to do with the country's finances as a whole. So that also is not appropriate. Option A will be the answer for this question, where uh, an architect has to ensure that his professional activities do not conflict with the general responsibility to contribute to the quality of the environment and future welfare of the society. So A is the appropriate answer. Next one, as per section 37 of Architects Act 1972, which one of the following title is exempt from legal action even if title contains use of the word architect? So section 37 of Architects Act 1972 has guidelines with respect to usage of the word architect or usage of the title architect. Who can use the title architect? Someone who has completed a 5-year BArch degree recognized by the Council of Architecture in the country of India is someone who can have this title of architect, right? There are in section 37 they also provide what are the exceptions for it. There are two exceptions which are majorly mentioned. Landscape architect in section 37, two areas or 2 points where the concerned person is exempt from using the title architect, is exempt from legal action for using the title architect, is landscape architect and naval architect. Other than these two, the usage of the title architect in India will attract legal action. No one can randomly use other than these cases. They cannot use the title architect without the prescribed qualifications. So from the given options, landscape architect is the appropriate. These are exemptions. These people, landscape architect and naval architect, are exemptions where they can use the title architect even without the prescribed qualification for an architect directly. So that's about this question. There are few other exceptions too. Other than these two exceptions, there's one more point. Someone who is a qualified architect in some other country, and if they are working on some government project in India, in that case they can use the title architect. So that's an explanation also given. So you can just go through section 37 of Architects Act once to get an understanding on the usage of the title of architect. Next question. Which of the following is the degree of lightness or darkness of a color in relation to white and black? We already have discussed this in Munsell color solid. On the scale of white and black ranging from 0 to 10, along the central vertical axis of the Munsell color solid, you have value. So value is a term which refers to lightness or darkness of a color. So option C will be the appropriate answer. Hue is basically on the central vertical axis, which is different colors used in the color solid. Chroma has to do with the saturation or purity. Value is basically saturation and chroma are again same. Value is lightness or darkness. So C will be the appropriate answer. Next question. Just 2 more minutes. That's 2 or 3 more questions. So that will end a target of 30 questions for this session. So next one, which one of the following is a measure of brightness of a color? So brightness of a light source or an illuminated surface. How bright a surface looks, be it a source. So generally this term it is used for brightness of screens. Like say this is a digital screen which is emitting light. So how much intensity it is releasing per unit area? Intensity, luminous intensity per unit area is called as luminance, and this measures the brightness of a surface. Even normal wall also, any surface, how bright is it, that depends on the luminance of it. Luminance is intensity, luminous intensity of that surface per unit area. This is called as luminance. Do not make a mistake, luminance and illuminance are different. Illuminance on the other hand, it is flux per unit area. Illuminance is flux received per unit area. It doesn't tell you how bright a surface is, it rather tells you how clear a surface is, or how much energy is received, how much luminous energy is received per unit area. And always remember, luminous it is generally measured only for surfaces but not for light source. How bright a light source or any surface is, that is intensity per unit area, which is luminance. So option D will be the appropriate answer for this question. You can also use elimination approach here. Illumination and lux value both are same. Illumination itself is measured in lux, so B and C can together be removed. Lumen is a measurement of flux. Obviously it is not a measurement of how bright a surface is. Luminance will be the appropriate answer. That's question number 28 for today. 29th question for today. Which one of the following is the lowest inside point of pipe culvert or a channel? If you look into pipe cross section, the lowest point in the interior of it, that's called as invert level of the pipe. The lowest point in the interior of a pipe cross section or a channel is called as invert level. The topmost interior point of a pipe or a channel is called as obvert level. That's the opposite for invert level. Obvert level and invert level. From the given options, they are talking about the lowest point, so option A, invert level, will be the appropriate answer. Next one, the last question for today. In project, just a second, let me. Okay, so in construction project management, PERT refers to, so they're talking about the full form of PERT: program evaluation and review technique, project evaluation and review time, project extension and review time, program evaluation and research technique. Program evaluation and review technique is the appropriate answer. That's the full form of PERT. PERT is a tool used in project management and construction management, which is a probabilistic model which stands for program evaluation review technique. A is the appropriate answer for this question, just the full form. So you see, there are a lot of questions. Now any question paper, it will always be a mix of easy and difficult questions. UPSC 2023 also has a lot of easy questions too, and that would be the same for the next paper. So I'm sure many of you who are watching this series are preparing for the deputy architect examination of UPSC. That also, remember, will have a similar approach. There will be easy questions and you need to capitalize on that. Your focus should be on not losing marks in the easy questions. Best way to do that, have a continual preparation, learn as many things as you can from the lecture series, from the past papers. Make sure you practice and make a note. Read Architects and the Works, which is going to be a major part in the examination. So understand the past pattern, and I hope you all are getting benefit out of this YouTube live session too. Do keep following our YouTube channel for more such sessions which we are going to schedule for the benefit of the student community. And for preparation with our coaching classes, you can enroll into KP GATE classes. We are running CPWD preparatory course, and also we have batches going on for various examinations, including Uttar Pradesh Public Service Commission, UPPSC, DDA exam was recently finished. We also have coach classes going on for HPSC, Haryana Public Service Commission, also UPSC too. If you're preparing for any of these government examinations, make sure you contact us on the number given in the description of this video. You can also enroll into our coaching program for GATE preparation, which has been a prime focus for the past say 6 years. We have been training students for GATE architecture, and you can enroll into our classes if you're preparing for GATE architecture exam as well. Thank you for attending this session. We'll meet soon in the next live session. Bye everyone.